Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. And this video series is my take on the very popular Unhaul project. And in my version, I use a spinner wheel loaded with all of the least appealing books on my TBR. And once a month, I pick 3 of them randomly and give them 50 pages to hook me in, at which point I decide whether to read them or yeet them. So that's basically it. Welcome to Read It or Yeet It. Once more onto the spinner wheel with everybody watching. Where's it gonna go? Aha! Okay, fair enough. The Price of Fire by E.M. Burnham is a book that I bought specifically for the HRCYED 2.0 challenge last year, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And it's an ebook, which is why I've never got round to reading it, and I ended up using another book for the prompt that I bought it for. It's also the 3rd in a series, and I'm not quite sure how I managed that, but I was kind of hoping, because it seems like a bit of a crime mystery series, that it wouldn't necessarily matter too much if I haven't read the first 2. But I believe it's something to do with alchemy, so it's kind of a cozy crime fantasy, possibly not cozy because it's about arson and magical fire, so I don't really know, but there's a building burns down and someone says that they saw green flames, and so the protagonist, Lady Adzia or something like that, gets her alchemist agent to investigate. So it sounds really fun, but it hasn't really got any ratings on Goodreads. It's a trilogy, and the first book has a few ratings and the second 2 don't have any at all, which isn't a great sign, but maybe it just means that nobody's found it. I mean, I know from publishing my own books that it's very difficult to find an audience, and mine don't have many ratings either, but that doesn't mean they're bad. So I guess we'll give it a try and see how it goes. So I'm about 56 pages in to The Price of Fire, and I'm very much on the fence, I have to say. We're in a world where alchemy is a thing, but in this instance, in this book, it hasn't really been properly explained. There's somebody who has telekinetic powers, it seems. There's stuff to do with green fire that alchemists do. Not really very clear. And the alchemy sects, there are 7 of them, and they live up on a mountain, and each sect has responsibility for like governance and mediation and legal stuff for like the villages around the mountain. And so they have investigators who will look into things when petitioners come and complain about stuff. So far, so intriguing. We've been kind of dumped right in the middle with an awful lot of names and places and factions and types of stuff, a lot about different religions or aspects of a central religion, thrown straight in. Not a lot of explaining going on. To be fair, this is book 3 in a series. I was assured by the interwebs that I could come in at this point. They're standalone mysteries, although there is continuity of characters. So, not the book's fault that I'm not necessarily understanding everything quite yet, or possibly ever. But that's fine. I don't really mind that. But considering that we start with a big explosion and a fire and various characters trying to control the blaze and stop it from spreading and rescue the people who are trapped, straight in on the action. Also not necessarily a problem, though I haven't got to know the characters yet, so I don't really know who they are or what their roles are or whether I should like them or not. Again, Book 3, I would know who they were if I had read books 1 or 2. Not the book's fault. The writing, though, every single action, every single person, every single object, every single location, described to the nth degree, kind of dilutes the tension somewhat, detracts from any sense of urgency of the story. Bit of an issue. It's quite repetitive as well in the writing, especially once we get past the opening scene of the fire and we go to Lady Azadia's chambers, where they're talking about what's happened and they're seeing petitioners. Everybody yawns and stretches and crosses their arms and clears their throat about 15,000 times. All the clothes are really described in such great detail, every single physical attribute of anybody who comes into the room. The dialogue also, very roundabout, very repetitive, doesn't get anywhere fast. They talk around in circles. They get interrupted when they're about to say something important. It was getting to the point of being turgid. And I feel mean saying that, but it was a struggle. But that said, I like the world. The presentation of the religion in particular is very well done, because various people seem to be affiliated with various different deities or saints or avatars of some variety, and that affects their gestures, their idioms that they use, the things that they say, some of their behaviour, some of their attitudes. It's very well embedded in the everyday narrative of what the characters are doing and saying. Very impressed with that, because that's something that I struggle with in my own writing. And I am intrigued. I'm intrigued by the mystery. I am. There was a big explosion, lots of stuff burned down. Someone comes to the lady who is one of the alchemists up on the mountain and says that he saw green fire, which is alchemical in nature. And now suddenly they think there's more to it than just an accidental spark in the bakery. So I'm intrigued. Ibram, who is the main point of view character and the main investigator, I like him a lot. I like the dynamic between him and Lady Azadia and all of the other people in her little team. They're cute and funny, and they seem very realistic in terms of how they interact with each other as like workplace colleagues. So that's all good. And once we got down into the town and Axel and Ibram started investigating and interviewing people, the turgidity of the prose settled down a little bit. So I do want to find out what is going on. I'm happy to spend time with these people, and the issues that I had early on do seem to be either I'm getting used to it or they are receding, possibly both. So all of that to say, a lot of waffle to say, I'm going to carry on for now. We're putting off the eating for now, and we'll see how we get on. But as yet, not entirely sure about this one. So I've made it to page 82 of The Price of Fire by E.M. Burnham. And I was out yesterday, took a day trip to see some friends and play a board game, and I decided I would only take, well, the e-reader, so there's lots of other books on there, but I would give The Price of Fire the journey to and from to before I decided what I wanted to do. And just before I left, I found myself downloading TV onto my phone so that I could watch it on the train. And that's never a good sign if I want to, because I always read on trains. I mean, it's very rare for me to be watching videos or TV shows on a train. And that's what I ended up doing. I did read a bit more of it. I did. I did get to page 82. But the two investigators, Ibram and Axel, who I do really like, went down into the town to interview some people, and they got to where they were going, and they were having a conversation with the people that they wanted to find out information from. And there was just names and more names, and I was like, who have we met these people? Who are these people? Well, how do they relate to the fire? What are they trying to find out? And I was struggling, I have to admit. So I feel bad because I like the world, I like the characters, the mystery was interesting. It's just the over detailed drawing it out, too much information to really take in easily. So since on the way home, I actually realised that I could start a different book because I had the e-reader. And did that and was immediately drawn in and engaged and wanting to carry on when I got home, even though it was quite late. I was like, yeah, it's time to call it, unfortunately. So we are going to be yeeting The Price of Fire by E.M. Burnham. And I do feel bad about it, but I'm not going to force myself to carry on reading a book that I'm struggling with, especially in Read It or Yeet It, because that's kind of the entire point, is not to struggle on. So you have to be quite circumspect because it's Dave's e-reader. Maybe we should get our own Read It or Yeet It e-reader. Stanley, what do you think? So that we can fling it about with abandon. Oh, come on. Oh, no. We've got a new tripod, people. New tripod. And it's very heavy and very solid. And I think if we fling books at it, the books are going to come off worse than the tripod. So I would try and avoid the tripod, Stanley. Let's see if we can go this way. Come on. Oh, a bit nervous. There we go. So, yes, I have started another book. So I already know what the spinner wheel's going to say, because I spun it a while ago. Yes, I know. Behind the scenes, how the sausage is made. Shouldn't be revealing this information. But you will now get to see what the spinner wheel has picked for me next. So, My Soul to Keep by Tananarive is, as I believe, a horror novel about vampires. So, it's on the list because I needed a vampire book for HRCYED 2.0, hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, last year. And then I ended up reading a kids' book about a vampire, which was cutesy and not scary at all, and never got round to reading it. But since I own a copy, I kept it on the list, thinking that maybe there would be vampires in this year's HRCYED too, but there isn't. No vampires required. So I stuck it on the Read It or Yeet It wheel, because why not? So a little bit apprehensive, I'm not going to lie. But Stanley's here. He's going to look after me, aren't you, mate? And we're going to give it a try and see how we get on. So, My Soul to Keep by Tananarive. I managed to get to 50 pages last night, and I wanted to read more, but I was actually woken up twice by the e-reader dropping from my hand onto the bed. And so I admitted defeat, but I had actually just managed to get to 50 pages. So I thought that was fair enough, because then I knew I could film my decision. And it's really good. It's really good. It hasn't got scary yet, and I'm still apprehensive because I have heard things about this author's books that make me nervous. But first 50 pages, really engaging, really involving, very, very well written. There's only very tiny hints of things to come. Actually, no, there was a point of view section from the vampire character, but to begin with, it's very subtle in terms of the hints that there's even anything unusual going on. And it's mostly about a woman called Jessica, who I assumed from the way her scenes were written and her stage of life that she was in her like mid to late 30s, but it turns out she's 28. But that's fine. I have rejigged my opinion of her. Not opinion, impression, visualization. Anyway, and she is a journalist, and she is doing an investigative report into elder abuse in nursing homes. And I think we're in the late 90s. I haven't actually double checked, but I think it's the late 90s. And it's in America. And she is married with a 5-year-old daughter. And well, the book actually starts with an 80-year-old woman being murdered, and then goes into a quite distressing section where a family dog dies. So it's not fluffy. It's definitely not fluffy, but there's nothing too disturbing at the moment. Anyway, Jessica has a 5-year-old daughter and husband called David, and she's struggling a little bit because she is very committed to her career, and one of her colleagues suggests that they write a book together, which would be a big time commitment and involve a lot of travelling, because it'd be another expansion of the investigative journalism that she does. And her husband, well, it says that he works from home as a book translator and tutor, and that enables him to be a full-time dad, which didn't track with me, because it still sounds like he's doing quite a lot of work. But I mean, a lot of parents do have to juggle working from home with looking after kids. But it was just the way it was phrased. I was like, I don't think he can be a full-time dad and also have 2 different jobs. But the point is that he is at home looking after the daughter, and Jessica is having some guilt over not being there for her child. So that's quite interesting, because it's a reversal of the usual expected roles. And, you know, do men feel the guilt and have societal opinions on them about that? But I'm not sure that's necessarily part of the book, but we'll find out. But there are little hints of stuff, because the character at the start who comes to see the old woman in the nursing home it's mentioned that he looks about 30, but she calls him Daddy. And then after the dog dies, the little girl is having conversation with Jessica, her mum, about whether the dog is in heaven and about whether her parents will end up in heaven at some point, because Jessica is a Christian and David is an atheist. And this little 5-year-old is struggling with whether, you know, they're all going to be together in the afterlife. And she says that the dad has told her that he's never going to die. And that's obviously a hint into things that are going to happen. But anyway, too much information, I think. I'm really enjoying it, is the upshot. Really enjoying it. I feel quite connected to Jessica in some ways. I mean, she's completely different to me in terms of her background, her family situation and her job. But I can relate to her in certain aspects, and she is an interesting narrative voice to have. And then we get one short section from David's point of view, which is also really interesting and speaks to an awful lot of interesting stuff that might happen later on, about his background and how things might progress. So I really don't actually know where it's going, apart from the couple of hints. It's a very normal domestic story at the moment, but that in and of itself is very compelling and incredibly well written. So definitely not yeeting this as yet. I'm hoping I'm not going to regret reading it as time goes by, but we should wait and see. And at the moment, I'm really enjoying it. So, My Soul to Keep by Tananarive Jew. Hang on, Stanley, why are you wearing a tie? Have you been interviewing people to replace me? Right. Yes, I did finish the book, but I kind of wish I hadn't. It is good. It's very well written, but I'm very much preferred the narrative thread from Jessica's point of view, the main protagonist, rather than her husband or his flashbacks. So that became more of an issue as the book went on, because there was more with David and less with Jessica. And whilst it did maintain tension and intrigue, and I was quite keen to find out what was going to happen by the end of this installment in the series, I wasn't very happy about what happened in the end. Really horrible. It was so horrible. And whilst the rest of the series does actually sound quite interesting, I don't want to carry on. I am glad I gave it a try, because I did mostly enjoy it and I did like the writing. I'm probably not going to explore more of this author's work, because I have heard that she does tend to write stuff that's pretty harrowing and unpleasant. So yeah, I tried it. Didn't really work for me. But if you like character driven, kind of horror adjacent, I would say. I mean, there are aspects of it that are quite unpleasant, but it's not scary. I would definitely recommend this author. But I don't know whether I mentioned this in a previous clip. Probably not. I am also glad that I didn't read it for HRCYED 2.0 last year, because I specifically bought a copy of the book to fulfill the Vampire Square, and I don't think it does, because whilst the immortals do become immortal by drinking blood, it's very specific blood, and they don't drink blood otherwise. They only do it the once. So I don't think they count as vampires, so I don't think it would have been eligible. But anyway, that's by the by. We're not going to yeet it, Stanley, because it is a very good book, and we've already yeeted Dave's e-reader once this episode, and the poor thing has suffered enough. But I'm not going to carry on with the rest of the series, and I think I'm going to give this 3. I'm going to give it 3. Yeah, 3. So that's kind of it for this month's episode of Read It or Yeet It. We had just the 2 books, a yeet and a 3. So not the most wildly successful reading experience of my life, but I'm glad I gave both of them a try. Do let me know in the comments if you have read any Tananarive Jew, and if you think I should perhaps try something else, or in fact carry on with this series. And yeah, I hope you are having a good reading month. Thank you so much for watching, and do give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want more content from me and Stanley. talking about books, or possibly, if Stanley's been interviewing, Stanley and someone else talking about books. Could happen. You gonna do that to me? Yeah, and I will see you again in another video very soon. Bye for now.